Spin rate. Everyone wants to know how to increase your spin rate. I'm not going to sit here and say that I have the right answer. I have a theory. Experimentations of spin and all of this. Like, I used to be a guy that like literally was 1750, 1800 on my four seam, you know, and that was because I put crevices, the crevices of my finger, I always put them like on the seam, and it was like pretty wide apart. That was a super low spin. Then I started playing around with like putting my fingers closer together, and then I started playing around with like putting my fingertips in the seam. And then yesterday was that first pen where I kind of just thought about, like, instead of being loose and just placing my fingertips on top of the baseball, I was actively thinking about pulling that seam, as if I was like going to take this and how could I like pull it backwards and almost rip that baseball from that stitch and fold it over. So now I'm taking my two fingers in the center of the baseball. Yesterday, for example, in that pen, when I was getting my spin higher than it's ever been, I was consciously thinking about like gripping the ball and then pulling down with my fingertips, almost like creating tension. And then when I would go to throw, everything was normal as far as like my arm action being loose. But as soon as I would come into my throw and get the hand into the slot, now I have that sense of like feedback from when I'm pulling down that seam with my fingers already, that now when I go to release it, I'm just accelerating my hand and my fingers like through the zone of the zone of which your arm action takes. Yeah. There it is. So you're gonna have distance, right? The difference of the lengths of fingers. So what I would say is like, play around with where those fingers are placed on the horseshoe. So if you have it like with the baseball with this side of the horseshoe facing like how I do, then you can play around with putting the index a little bit lower and then the middle finger in the middle of the baseball and then pulling down on that seam, right? So the idea is to get that friction and that tension pulling down that seam, and then make sure that both of your fingers are influencing the amount of force behind the baseball and then the amount of force that you can implement down on that seam. Does that make sense? So the thing that I don't like is this seam right here will start rubbing my ring finger, and I don't like that. So I got to get, there it is. So as I mentioned though, super small sample size, literally one pen, but it was the first pen where I was consciously thinking about that one little adjustment. Could be it, could be not. I'll throw another pen maybe tonight because I'm excited about this. But let me know if you decide to like kind of play around with it and you have access to data readings. Let me know. I'd be curious to hear other people's thoughts. Obviously, it's probably not going to work for everyone. And I've met people that spin the crap out of the ball and they're super loose with their fingers. Like, who knows? Okay. Yeah. Talk to you guys later.